So here's the agenda for today. Welcome and introductions, which I just did. We're going to go over the stages of disaster stress. What is COVID fatigue? What are the signs to look for in yourself and in other people? Ways to be safe, combating fatigue and burnout, daily self-care, health and wellness, work, school, and life balance, because I think that's a huge part of COVID fatigue, which we already mentioned with the female double burden that's been given to us, and community, and then questions and comments. So at the end of this workshop, you'll be able to define what COVID fatigue is if you can't already. Name at least 5 symptoms of COVID fatigue. Name at least 3 ways to stay safe. Explain at least 5 ways to combat COVID fatigue. And name at least 3 techniques for self-care and 3 techniques for work, school, life balance, and 1 way you can be involved in your community. So the stages of disaster stress. The first one is community bonding. And this is what happens directly after a disaster happens. And it brings me back to when 9/11 happened. If you were around back then, it was like immediately our country, our communities came together in a way that I don't think we had seen before on that level. And that's what happens. The community draws together. And when I thought about COVID and what was going on when it first hit, if you remember, we were waving to each other. If you remember all the videos coming in from Italy of people playing music from their balconies to each other, and was there clapping and stuff for the healthcare workers in New York City? You know, all these different things. This is that. Is somebody not on mute? No. This is what happens right after a disaster hits. There's this sense of coming together to get through it. And so we also went through that with COVID like we did after 9/11. The next stage is disillusionment. And this is where there's a lack of optimism. People are starting to give up. People start to not care. There starts to see some negative and angry reactions. I put some photos in there of a Walmart employee getting accosted by someone who doesn't want to wear a mask. People would rather get sick than stay home. People are willing to take that risk. I remember when they were talking about COVID parties and people were just trying to, let's just get infected and get it over with, you know, working for the herd immunity concept. People stop listening to the health leaders, to the scientists. I think we've seen that a lot in our social media, in our newscasting, in people's reactions, not trusting the science. This is all part of the next stage of disaster stress that's called disillusionment. So COVID fatigue. I'm tired. You're tired. There's been threats that you're going to get sick, threats that you're going to have to be laid off or you were laid off, threat of death because so many people have died from this, just living in this constant fear of something bad might happen. That in itself is exhausting. Our typical coping methods are gone, right? Like, what do we usually do to feel better? We get together with friends. We go out to eat. Do you remember making reservations at a restaurant? Like, how long has it been that we've been able to do something like that? Going to the movies. I will tell you how grateful I was last summer when the drive-in opened, the Elmira drive-in opened, and it was such a blessing because at least it was a tiny little bit of normalcy. You got to sit there, have some popcorn, sit at a movie in your own car. You were safe. But just not being able to do the things you usually do, to enjoy yourself, to have fun, to de-stress. The amusement parks, not having the amusement parks last year. I don't know how many of you have children, but that was hard on my girl. She lives by Eldridge Park, it's just easy to get to. It's right there, it's fun. And that was really hard for her not to have that outlet in the summer. So if we were still able to have these coping mechanisms, I think maybe the fatigue wouldn't have hit us so hard, but it took away all of the things we usually do to get over a stress. And that it led to widespread emotional exhaustion. And I think that's where most of us are at some level, feeling just the level of exhaustion. We are over a year now. And I don't think this time last year, anyone would have imagined this lasting that long. I can remember them saying, everything will be back to normal by Easter. Do you remember that statement last year? And like, we've already had another Easter when you think about it. And it's been a long ride for all of us. So the fatigue also comes from staying at home, being in our houses, not being able to go out. And if you did go out, there's really nowhere to go. And all the talk about flattening the curve, social distancing, then they decided that wasn't the right term because people can still be social. They need to be physically distant. So getting into the physical distance. And a year into this pandemic, I think when people hear these phrases now, it kind of gets you right in the heart or in the gut, like, oh, like those words again, like there's a guttural reaction from these words because we've been listening to them and dealing with them for over a year now. And COVID fatigue, it affects our mental and our physical health. So many levels, because you're missing the friendships, you're missing the closeness with family, you're missing getting hugs. Do you know that they say hugs like improve your mental health? And we haven't been able to do that with our loved ones for so long, and that makes an impact. And then the length of time that we're staying at home, on top of the fatigue, on top of the not being able to get out and do things, you start to lose motivation as well. And when you lose motivation, you're not really inspired to do that exercise, to go out for that walk, to keep your self physically fit. And that starts to impact your physical health as well. And the biggest concern about COVID fatigue is that it causes us to want to get lax on the precautions. We are all tired of this. We are all tired of the 6 feet apart. Can the schools open? If they open, will they shut down right away? Can the gyms open? Will they shut down? It's just been an ongoing. And then people start to want to give up. And they'll get lax on washing their hands. They'll get lax on wearing their masks. They will rebel against wearing their masks, which I think we've seen a lot of rebellion in this country over the past year against the masks. And then this maintaining the physical distance and how hard that is to do, especially when you can't have that closeness with the people that you love. And all of this affects our mental and our physical health. And the more that you feel this fatigue, and the more that you feel this stress, because stress lives in our bodies. It lives in our bodies. So for example, for me, I know when I'm stressed because it hits me right here, the back of the neck and the shoulders. And when that starts to feel a little pain, that I know I've overloaded my stress. And it really is physical. Stress turns into physical, and not, if you don't take care of it, there are certain disorders and illnesses that can be stress related. So this is why it's so important that we keep taking care of ourselves, even through these difficult times. So what are people afraid of? Wearing the mask, everything being shut down, and the Zoom meetings. And here we are on another one, right? And I know for me, in the role that I have, I talk to people all day long. That's my job. So I'm looking at myself all day, right? That is not something we usually do. And I find that that is kind of exhausting as well, to add to it. It's just become a lot for everybody. And I think this picture kind of shows it. I think about our younger children so much, trying to handle this mask thing without truly understanding what's going on and why is it important. I feel for the teachers and all that they're going through, having to mandate this. Being on a college campus, I've been working with the residence hall staff, and because their role is also to make sure people are following the mandates. And you get a person in their young 20s, late teens, young 20s, they have their own ideas, and they've had the stress of having to handle people that don't want to follow the mandates. And what does that mean for the college? And what does that mean for the safety of everyone in the community? It's a huge stressor. And that brings us back to the disillusionment phase, people wanting to get lax on these precautions. They've had it, they're tired of it. They want this to be over and done with. And unfortunately, the only way to get through it is by following the protocol so we can get to the other side. But that has become such a long, drained out process. People are like, really, is it even going to happen? So it gets really difficult for folks. People are tired of missing their friends and family. This picture reminds me of, this is how you visit with grandma. I remember seeing pictures of large pieces of plastic that people put together with a place to put their arms. So they were actually hugging their grandparents through plastic. Did anyone else see that? It just makes you feel something not so good, And this not having a routine. People that are used to getting up in the morning, going to the office, coming home, taking care of their kids. Now it's trying to create your own routine. If you're not going to the office, trying to make work and home life separate enough, even though they're completely convoluted right now. Losing that sense of a routine can be so hard. I have a daughter who regularly is in a million different activities. That's just who she is. She's got the 4-H, she was horseback riding, she was doing gymnastics, and everything shut down. And she lost all of her outlets. And that's just one example from a child, but imagine grown-ups and how much of our routines were just shut down as well. People are tired of not going to the office, or they're tired of being scared to go to the office, because everybody has a very different level of comfortability in terms of COVID. There are people that are very fearful. That could be because of their own health issues. It could be because of health issues in their family, that they just buckle down. They are not going anywhere. They're sure not going to the office, and they're working remotely, and they're very scared. And then you have other people who wish they could get to the office, but maybe their office hasn't reopened yet, and they're missing that sense of normalcy. They're missing that sense of a routine. And this all, yes.
I just want to add to what you're talking about. I find that, most of us work from home with the Girl Scouts, and when I do have to go into the office for something, I find that I'm exhausted afterwards, like mentally, physically. It just takes, because I'm worried about, I need to make my mask so that other people who are in the office feel comfortable. But it's just so out of routine for me to leave the house now that it just drains me of everything. And I was supposed to go last night and I keep putting it off. And I think that that's not normal I'm not a procrastinator. So I find this all very, very interesting, the effects that it has on people.
Yes, and there are people that are not feeling any motivation to leave the house now. They've gotten very, very comfortable staying home. And I work with a few kids that are fully remote, and schools are trying to open up now. And the kids are like, they don't want to go back. They're happy being home. They got comfortable. There's workers that their office is trying to entice them to come back to the office. And it's a struggle because I think people got really comfortable being home. And perhaps for you, before the pandemic, you weren't like that at all. You were always going out and about and having your normal life and routine. And then this hit, and it's just like showed you another way to be. And I get it. I get it. People got comfortable being home. And then that leads to isolation. It can withdrawal from community and just not having the gumption to get out there again. We're seeing it a lot on the college campus because they went fully remote. Everything went fully remote in October, as you remember. And the students not leaving their dorm room. And Residence Life trying real hard to entice kids to get out and be social again. And they just got into a mode of self-isolating in their dorm rooms, exhausted from the Zooms, not wanting to do another virtual event. And it's been a struggle, I think, for all the age groups. Thank you for sharing. So what is COVID fatigue? COVID fatigue implies a person has reached his or her capacity to cope and is experiencing various mental, emotional, and physical symptoms as a result of the constant exposure to pandemic stressors, including social distancing, isolation from friends and family, fears of contracting COVID-19, numerous virtual meetings, grief, financial stress, and more. And we haven't talked about grief yet, but how many of us have had people die from the virus, get very ill from the virus, still struggle with symptoms, even though they don't have the virus anymore? It's really changed a lot of people's lives. And the financial stress, that adds a whole other level of exhaustion. So what are the signs to look for? And when I go through these, I want you to be thinking about yourself and the people around you. Exhaustion, lack of motivation, no desire to get up and move, hard to get out of bed, physical and mental fatigue, lethargy, just absolutely no desire to really do anything, a lack of energy, feeling constantly overwhelmed, sad, or helpless, wondering if this really is ever going to end or if it is ever going to get better. That sense of just kind of starting to give up and everything feeling overwhelming. Like, I don't know who was sharing, but that going to the office now, which is something you've probably been doing for years in your life, suddenly feels overwhelming and exhausting to think about. The inability to complete daily tasks. Things that you could usually get done in a day, simple tasks, just aren't getting done. This makes me think of my house, if you want to know the truth, and just trying to keep up with all that on top of everything else we're trying to get through, and just not getting through everything like we used to, and then putting ourselves down because we're not as productive as we used to be. And I think this is an added stress that we're doing to ourselves. because we know the kind of worker, the kind of person, the kind of friend, the kind of family member that we were pre-COVID. We know what we're capable of being able to do. But with COVID, everything has an extra layers of difficulty associated with it. And it makes everything harder. So when we expect ourselves to be at 100% during a pandemic, we're only setting ourselves up for disappointment, which will lead to us feeling bad about ourselves and putting ourselves down and, oh, what's wrong with me, and all those negative thoughts. So really, I come back to be gentle with yourselves and understand that we are all doing the absolute best we can, given the environment that we find ourselves in. Increased irritability. Are you finding yourself quick to anger? Are you yelling more than you usually do? Are things that don't normally upset you pissing you off, just really getting to you in a way that they wouldn't normally, given a different circumstance? That's something to watch out for. And reduce work performance. Are you not keeping up? Are you not really motivated to do as good a job? Does it really not seem so important anymore? Are you noticing a real change in the quality of work that you're doing? And then the isolating from others. I mean, they told us to, right? So there's that side of it. And then there's doing it to ourselves, kind of what I talked about in the residence halls. They really self-isolated themselves and just trying to figure out how to be socially distant without fully isolating ourselves, because that's not good either.
Mary Kay,
Yes.
a couple of people in the chat have said that what you're saying really speaks to them. One gal in particular said, I never used to have trouble making decisions, but now I feel like it takes me so long to make a decision about anything.
Anything, yes. Yes.
And, a couple of us have agreed that, you know, this so far has been wonderful because it's enlightening, and it makes us feel like we're not alone and that, you know, others are feeling the same way, and that it's normal to feel this way. So thank you for this.
Yes. What is not normal is that we're living in a pandemic. And that's what we have to remember. That's the part of it that's abnormal, not normal, shouldn't have happened, right? And all of the ways that we as human beings are reacting to it are our normal coping mechanisms for dealing with stress, trauma, crazy situations. So keep the focus on the pandemic is abnormal. I am a normal human being, and this is what normal human beings do. And I will tell you, since you brought up lack of decision-making, the biggest decision-making problem we've been having in my household is like, what's for dinner? I don't know. What's in the kitchen? I don't know. There's nothing there. Okay, get pizza, right? It's just like this ongoing thing. And I'm not advertising this. I don't get paid for saying this, but we got one of those HelloFresh programs. It's changed my life. I mean, I don't have to worry about what's for dinner because it arrives in a box with all the ingredients. And it's just like, just to give one example of a way I've dealt with that level of not being able to make a decision or not caring enough about the decision, you know, so that's just one thing I did, but I'm not here to, you know, advertise a certain product, but it's fun and it helps my family. So all of this leads us towards adherence concerns, people not wanting to follow the protocols. And I think we witness this on a daily basis. And everybody has a different level of comfortability with the mandates, with the virus, with everything else. And now with the vaccine, people are feeling pretty safe. So then I'm vaccinated, so I don't need to follow the protocols. And it's like, well, you still do. And so you may notice people stopping following the protocols. And we have to remind ourselves that every time somebody does that, it's a chance to give up on all the progress we made, because we've really made a lot of progress. If you think back to New York City, what New York City went through, I can't even imagine. It was horrific in the beginning of the pandemic. And I don't think any of us want to go back there. And even though we're tired, we're exhausted, we've had it, keep that in mind. Remember how bad it was, because I think as things keep getting better, we forget how bad this was. Kind of like when people say, why do we need vaccines? Because we don't have those diseases anymore. And it's like, but the reason we don't have the diseases anymore is because we have a vaccine, right? When I was a child, I had the mumps. Well, there's a mumps vaccine. Nobody else ever has to get the mumps again, right? So we know that people are ready to switch back to what normal was before, but it's just not possible right now. The statement doesn't say it's just not possible. There's a stipulation of right now. And that's what we have to remember too. This will pass over time. We will get through. We get through everything. It's just going to take some time, and we have to really work together to make it possible to get through it.
Mary Kay, someone commented that it's very frustrating when you have a partner or a family member or a housemate that has a polar opposite view on protecting themselves, such as, I'm vaccinated, throw away the masks, I don't need one. How does one deal with that?
I think it's reminding people that the mask is not there to protect them. It's there to protect the other people. You're protecting other people from that you might have the virus. Does that make sense? I think when people put the mask on, they think, okay, now I'm safe. And it's like, no, I'm putting this mask on because I don't know if I'm safe and I want to protect you. So kind of do the little turnaround with them to be like, okay, you don't want to wear it for you. Will you wear it for me? Will you wear it for our elder relatives who are health compromised? Will you wear it for other people? You don't want to wear it for you, but will you wear it for other people? But it's, go ahead.
I think too, there's a false sense of security about the vaccine. In that instance, if somebody is fully vaccinated, a lot of times they think, well, now I can't get it anymore. So I don't need to worry about protecting you because I'm not going to get it. So that I think makes it difficult. We have to remember that, these vaccines are not, 100% foolproof either.
Yep. And you think about the flu shot, we get it every year. And the flu shot doesn't mean you're not going to get the flu. It means you're not going to get a bad flu. So you get the COVID vaccine so that if you were to contract COVID, you're not going to end up on a ventilator. You're not going to end up in the hospital. You're not going to have a bad case of COVID. It works just like the flu vaccine. The way I am not a doctor. I am not Dr. Fauci, but it's just the way that I view it. I compare it with the flu vaccine. And I wonder, and I don't know, because I don't think anybody knows yet, but is this going to be like every year we get a flu and a COVID? Like, I have no idea, but we just have to wait and see. So what are the ways to be safe? And this is really important because it is possible to see your loved ones, to be with your loved ones, and be safe. We don't have to be in complete isolation like I feel like we felt this time last year. There are ways to be safe. I gave the example of the drive-in. What a blessing that was last year, and just really thinking hard about what are some ways to be safe. Can you do a small gathering outside? I will tell you, this winter, skiing was amazing. It's so easy to be socially distant on those slopes. And they didn't let anyone on a chairlift together unless they had arrived together. So they really did a good job. And so it's not that we can't go out and do anything, it's that we have to be really cognizant about what we're doing and make wise choices, because you can be safe and social and active. Encourage mask wearing and physical distancing when you are in gatherings. If you're outside, staying more distant, then you probably don't need to wear the mask. If you go inside, it might make more sense to have masks on, unless you have a really huge room and a house to be in that people can be socially distant. Limit the size of the gatherings. And I know that they've opened up weddings. They've opened up other types of social gatherings now, but even the places are going to have limited capacity to make sure they're not bringing in too many people and that people will still be able to socially distance. So just thinking about how you can still get together with people, do it safe, even if it means you're going to see less people at one time. And if you do attend a large gathering, be diligent about your mask wearing for the next 2 weeks in case you have contracted COVID, to make sure you're not giving it to someone else. That's the trickiest thing about this virus. It's probably the thing that I hate the most about it, if there is one thing, is that you're contagious even if you don't have symptoms. So you don't even know. You don't even know if you're giving it to someone else. And that to me is the most frustrating part of this. It's easy, like, okay, I have a fever, I'm going to stay home, right? Clear. But this virus doesn't work that way. And I think that's what has made this so frustrating and so hard to get through. Create a pod or a quarantine, a group of friends or family with whom you exclusively socialize. I know a lot of people that have been doing this and just staying within their small group of people so that they are limiting contact, limiting the number of people that they're in contact with. That's one way to be able to stay social and still be safe. I know school kids are doing this. A lot of people set up pods for the remote learning, and that's their group that they're staying with. So how do we combat COVID fatigue and burnout? This is where self-care comes into play. This is where you have to remember to take care of yourself and make sure that you're doing all you can to keep yourself feeling happy and healthy. So important. So if you can find a way to do the things you used to love to do that you might have stopped doing, this is the time. This is the time to bring out all those hobbies you used to have, you know, the things that you used to do to enjoy. One thing I have found extremely relaxing, I don't know if you've heard of these diamond paintings that you're painting with tiny little beads. I'm not an artist, so it's not like I'm going to go paint a masterpiece, but just the repetitive motion, I'm not sure what it is, but I find it so relaxing. And at the end of it, you have this gorgeous picture and you can be like, I made that, you know? And just finding different activities that you can do to help yourself remain calm, remain happy, remain healthy, finding what those things are. Coming up with a plan for accountability, keeping everybody accountable to making sure that even though they're fatigued and they're burned out with this, that they're not going to get lax on their adherence to the mandates. Share goals of things you want to do that can be done safely with mask wearing and physical distancing. What are some things that you can do? What are some things you want to do as a family? All right, how do we make that happen in a safe way? We just took a trip to the Mystic Aquarium. And I don't know if you've been there before or just an aquarium in general. Usually they're so crowded, you don't even get to see the sea lion show. There's just so much going on. But with COVID, with the limited capacity, there was so few people in that aquarium that you could actually enjoy it without having to deal with the crowds. So there was a way to do something fun that the family might enjoy and in a safe way, because they were very serious about their protocols. And if you want to start getting out and doing things, check out their websites, because all of the places are really listing how they're handling the mandates and what are they doing to make sure people are safe. Keep a log of your triggers. Keep track of what are the things that really set you off so that you know how to handle them when they come up. And then come up with what you can do in those moments. So think about the things that are upsetting you. What are those things that set you off? And then what are the things you can do to get through it? What are the coping mechanisms that are going to work for you? Whether it's meditation, yoga, relaxation, taking some deep breaths, going outside for a walk, leaving the room, sitting quiet for a little while, whatever it is that works for you. This is the time to get in touch with those things that work so that you know what to do when the triggers come back. Listen to music and playlists that are geared to your mood. I think music can be so healing. Catch up with your reading or start a virtual book club with friends. Check out podcasts on topics of your interest. Just really get back to finding the hobbies that you enjoy. So daily self-care. Here are some ideas for daily self-care, and feel free to share the ones that work for you. Research and trying out new recipes. I mean, so much access to our kitchen now that we're home, working from home. Time to have some fun with it. Try some new things. Baking always has a great reward at the end, you know. Self or guided meditation to start your day. Remembering to take breaks during the day, that's really important. Take a moment for yourself to assess how you're doing periodically throughout the day. Am I really stressed out right now? If I am, what can I do about it? And do a self-check of your feelings. Schedule meaningful catch-up sessions with friends and family. This I actually put into place, and I found it very helpful, that I chose just a really core group of friends that we would make sure we would touch base with each other. Maybe it was every few weeks or so, just to get a sense of how they're doing, how they're coping. And that really helped. Accessing resources to counseling if you feel it's needed. That's what your EAP program is for. That's why we're here. And I'll tell you that one thing I think COVID has done for us, if it's done anything positive, is it's really lowered the stigma of mental health, because at this point, everyone is a different level of depressed and anxious. At this point, we all got some level of it somewhere. And I think people are a little more open to, like, you know what, I need to talk to someone about this. And we're seeing major upticks in intakes, people requesting services. So that is always available if you just want someone to talk through something. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is very healing. If you start your day listing off things in your life that you're grateful for, it improves your energy level. It improves your mood, your feeling. It's like gratitude is like a higher level of happiness, and it truly improves your mental health if you can find time during the day to remember all the things you're grateful for. And some people keep a gratitude journal so that they're constantly updating and remembering all the things they're grateful for. And it really puts you in a different mindset, because yes, during the day, there's going to be things that happen that are going to upset us, right? There's going to be things during the day that are stressful, but we don't have to focus on that. We can focus on the things we're grateful for, and that will give us the strength and perseverance to get through the things that stress us out. Try at-home workouts through apps or videos. That's become really popular while everyone's stuck at home. And spend time outside. I think nature in itself is just healing for us. Just the fresh air, the wind, the smells, the sounds. I just think it really touches us in a way that can help us feel better. And I think the snow stopped, hopefully. So then there's work, school, life. And this picture, I think, kind of says it all. You got the mother is trying to get her work done. The kid is on his Chromebook trying to get his work done. And look at the table, right? It just really says it all of what's been going on during this pandemic. And the blurred boundaries. We used to have a home and we used to have an office. Now we have a home and an office and a school all within the same building. And that really leads to blurred boundaries that, like, am I at home or am I at work now? Like, where does it end and where does it begin? And they say that the blurring of boundaries is the greatest contributor to burnout. And the added stress of quarantine, remote work, remote school, that has blurred our lives even more. You start to feel like you're at work all the time because you're still in the place where you were working from 9 to 5. So how do we find balance? Because that's going to be really important. They recommend that we set specific and separate spaces for where you work and where you live. If you have a house, an apartment that allows you to do that, because I understand that small apartments and small houses are not going to offer that to you. And when I was working remote, we don't have an extra space. So I was counseling in my bedroom, which is not recommended, just so you know, not recommended. And so as soon as I could come back to the office, I did, because I was like, no, this is not what I'm going to do. But if you can set specific and separate spaces for where you work and where you live, that helps. Set time limits for how long you work in a specific place, in a specific task. That's going to help set some boundaries. Stay healthy through a set eating routine. I know 24-hour access to the kitchen has changed my child's life. She has loved it tremendously to have that kitchen all the time, because at school, they give them like 15 minutes and they got to chug something down real fast at lunchtime. And here she's just got the kitchen all the time. So that's real easy to get into a routine of just eating whatever, whenever. But in order to keep boundaries in place, remembering to set a routine, the breakfast, the lunch, perhaps a snack and a dinner, so that it's not just like eating all day long. And practice mindfulness activities. Mindfulness has become such a buzzword lately, and people have really started mainstreaming it into regular culture. It's not just like some outlandish thing like only those people do. Schools have implemented it in their programs, and they really help you just get back in touch. Take quick walks outside during the day. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break, go outside, come back, and you will feel refreshed. I love this picture. I'll just say that. It's so real. So here is this person and their dog walking through a beautiful landscape in nature. And the dog, what is he thinking about? The beautiful landscape in nature. And what is the person thinking about? All that stuff, all that stress. What didn't I do yet? What do I have to do? What's for dinner? I wish I never said that. I wish that person never said that. I should have said this. Da, 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 da. All the regrets, the worries, the everything, resentments, instead of being present and enjoying the beautiful place that they are. So is your mind full, or are you mindful? That's the question. So here's some other ways of finding balance. Waking up early to take advantage of more sunlight. Set daily intentions and to-do lists. I always feel better if I can check something off, even if it was something really easy, like write my to-do list, check. It just feels good. Enjoy coffee and tea outside. This whole sense of getting outside the house. If you've been stuck in a house for a long time, start to get outside. We can. I know it snowed the last 2 days, but it's not always going to snow. It's going to get warmer. I promise. Summer is coming. You can eat lunch outside in a green space. And the picture, I chose this picture because they're socially distanced. They have their little picnics going on, and they're enough far away from each other that they can still be safe. And take a walk, go for a walk. That can always be relaxing, and it just kind of lets your mind just kind of chill out and relax for a little while. And getting out into the community. One way to get a relief from the monotony of being home all the time is to get back out in the community. And I know that's hard to do because everything's been shut down, but things are starting to open up, and they are starting to open up in safe ways. And just finding out where you want to go, where you want to be, and how can you do it in a safe way. You can support local businesses who are committed to the COVID-19 safety measures. You know that they're not going to be piling in a party at 25 in a small space, that they really have separated out. Like if it's a restaurant, this group will sit here, this group will be in this corner, like they really took careful protocols. The outside activities, skating, skiing. Skiing was great this summer, this winter, I have to say. Sports, parks, pools, just finding safe outside activities. I know the water parks have opened up at a very limited capacity. Things like that. I don't think I'm ready for a water park yet. That's just me, but I know other people have gone. Visit your hiking and walking trails. It's pretty easy to be socially distant out in the woods. Fishing, going for a walk in a park, all those things. There's ways to get out. We don't have to be stuck inside. We can be socially distant outside. And what do we do if we're dealing with people who are suffering from COVID fatigue? It's really our role to remind them that the only way we're going to get through this is by reducing the number of COVID-19 cases. Just always reminding them of that. I know you're tired of this. You want this to end. There's only one way to get this to end, and that's by reducing the risk of transmission. So if you want to go out and visit family and get back to work, you gotta follow the guidelines. And I know it's redundant, but it really is the only way through. So encouraging mask wearing, physical distancing, interacting outside, washing hands, and staying safe. And when you see somebody wearing a mask, thank them. Positive reinforcement, you know? You're wearing a mask. I know you care about us. And these are some symptoms to look for that possibly somebody might need to ask for help. So if the symptoms have gotten to an extent that they really need to seek professional help, here are some of the symptoms to think about. And you can think about people in your life that you know or yourself to see if you fit any of these. And that's why we're here. We're here as your EAP. If you ever need to talk, you get 5 free sessions. So does each family member. We have 4 offices now. Bath just opened up in April, Corning, Elmira, and Ithaca. And if you're not comfortable coming into the office, we still are doing telehealth. If you're not comfortable looking at yourself on a video, we do phone. I had a little kid yesterday who he wouldn't turn on the camera. He wouldn't talk to me, but he chatted. So we did the whole therapy session chatting. That's all he could handle. So we meet people where they're at, and we're pretty flexible with what's going to be most comfortable for you. So that is what I had planned for you. And now if there's any questions or comments or anything.
I had a comment, I guess, like a question at the end. What I'm finding is that I have anger, and it's not necessarily because of the pandemic. It's anger reactive to people who are not taking it seriously. The
The
people,
deniers.
yeah, I mean, I know people who still think it's a hoax. And I know I see people, the same people who are yelling about the economy needing to open up, the same people who, um, are just freaking out are the ones who are not getting vaccinated and who are not wearing masks. And you just want to take them by the head and shake them and say, well, listen, it won't open back up unless you do these things. And I've like defriended people on Facebook because I just can't deal with their entitled attitudes about it, and it's just very frustrating. So I think anger about that is my biggest thing. How the heck do I deal with that?
And we don't get to control what people think, what people do, how people act. So the best thing for you to do is to focus on you and make sure you're doing everything in your power to do what it takes to get through the pandemic, and maybe spend less time worrying about what other people are doing, because you're spending your time and energy on something you have no control over. And that is just going to lead to exhaustion, resentment, and all of that. But I'm glad that you brought this up, because this was very common during the pandemic, is that people lost friends. People kind of found out who their loved ones were and were like, and so many people have unfriended, defriended, blocked people who had been in their life their entire life. And that is a very common occurrence that happened during this pandemic. And I think the political climate plays into that as well. So, but yeah, so focus on you, do what you can for the pandemic, and know that that's enough, because that's really all you can do. And spend less time worrying about what other people are doing and that you disagree with. It's only going to bring you down and make you feel worse.
Yeah, that's very true. I have control issues anyway, so this has been really tough for me.
Yes, yes.
Mary Kay, this is Maggie Barnes. I work in healthcare, so I feel a little bit like the odd duck out here, and I think it's part of the struggle I've had for more than a year, is that, the old saying, yes, we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. It's not hitting everybody the same way. While my friends were talking about, well, at least I finally cleaned out all the closets and we organized the garage and I started a book and all this kind of stuff, I never got home. We worked more hours than ever. In the beginning, there was a stretch between March and April. I worked for 37 days straight. There was no weekends. They were very long days. It was exhausting to keep up with things that were changing literally by the hour. And I'm supposed to manage the messaging for Arnett Health. So to deal with the public and deal with the media when everybody was so confused and angry and frightened, and it's been exhausting for me for an entirely different reason. And when I talk to friends who have quote unquote normal jobs, and didn't have to do that or got to work from home, I feel like I have no way to connect with them because my experience is entirely different.
Yep. And we just did a series of 5 trainings for Arnett on COVID-19 and healthcare workers.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's a different experience.
I can't relate to what everybody else is saying they've gone through. I did everything but sleep in my office. I mean, my husband's in emergency services. We had to board the dog at one point because neither one of us were getting home, in less than 15, 16 hours a day. So some of us feel like the round peg in the square hole when it comes to this.
your entire perspective on the pandemic is going to be totally different. You lived it at a level that other people will never even understand. I've had clients that worked in the nursing homes, and what they witnessed and what they've been dealing with, I can't even imagine.
I just want to say thank you to you, Maggie, for all the sacrifices. I know it puts you in a different role, and I can empathize. I can't understand where you're coming from in honesty, but I empathize, and with both you and your husband, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's an honor. It's to have been a part of this, to have lived through this on the front lines like we did. You know, I think this is a thing with a lot of women. We are happiest when we are most useful. When we feel like we're having a direct impact on a situation and we're improving a situation for somebody else, I think that's really when our hearts sing. I would not trade this experience, not a minute of it, not even the absolute horrible days. Just to have taken my spot in the line and do what I do, I wouldn't have missed it. So I appreciate your gratitude, but I wouldn't have been anyplace else.
You're awesome.
Yep, she sure is.
If it helps, we donated Girl Scout cookies to Arna and well, it was Guthrie. We did cases and cases of cookies to different organizations, and healthcare workers were the top one on our list to get cookies to. So hopefully that
cookies are always appropriate. We like most hospitals, we move on our stomach here. So food is the way right to our heart. Thank you all.
Any other questions or comments from Mary Kay? Comments you want to share with the group?
This was super helpful. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. I have lots of notes, and I think that this is one of those things that we can then turn around and share with others and help support them and make them aware of resources that are out there. So I really appreciate taking the time today. Thank you.
Absolutely, Mary Kay. Thank you. Would you be willing to share your slides so that we can...
Definitely. We'll send them out.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
I'm just scrolling if it looks like I'm distracted.
I think it's nice too that we are all here going through this together this morning. You know, it really makes you feel like you're not alone and you've got somebody there that understands what you're going through, and people that we can turn to for support, you know. So I think it's just terrific that everyone has made the time to do this today.
Yeah, far be it for me to say once again that we're all female here.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think in the future, I'll add more of the healthcare worker experience into the slides because that was missing, and they have a completely different perspective in their experience of COVID. So thank you, Maggie, for that perspective.
All right, ladies. Thank you again to Mary Kay. Appreciate validating that we're all not losing our minds.
Normal human reactions is what
Yeah.
you're dealing with, to a very abnormal situation.
Denise,
sometimes that's enough just to know that, you know, you're not alone and you are experiencing normal reactions. So
we are all
right.
losing our minds, but we're doing it together, so it's okay.
Thank you for the camaraderie this morning. Very welcome. Thank you all for making time. And we look forward to when we can do this in person. So thank you again, Mary Kay. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you soon. See ya.